So, chapter 14, verse 9. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajah karmani bharata jnanam avritya tu tamaha pramade sanjayatyuta. This is verse 9. 10 is rajas tamaschabhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata. Rajas sattvam tamaschaiva tamas sattvam rajas tatha. Then 11. सर्वद्वारेषु देहेऽस्मिन् प्रकाश उपजायते ज्ञानं यदा तदा विद्यात् विवृद्धं सत्त्वम् इत्युत लोभः प्रवृत्तिरारम्भः कर्मणाम् अशमस्पृहा रजस्येतानि जायन्ते विवृद्धे भरतर्षभ अप्रकाशो प्रवृत्तिश्च प्रमादो मोह एव च तमस्येतानि जायन्ते विवृद्धे कुरु नन्दन. And 14 and 15 यदा सत्त्वे प्रवृद्धे तु प्रलयं याति देहभृत् तदोत्तम अभिदां लोकान् अमलान् प्रतिपद्यते रजसी प्रलयं गत्वा कर्मसंगिषु जायते तथा प्रलीनस्तमसि मूढयोनिषु जायते. So if you remember, we were talking about Guna Vibhagat Yoga. Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. So we're talking about the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And he said everything in this creation from Prakriti has come down. This is the Sankhya philosophy. From Prakriti, the first thing that came was the three gunas. And from three gunas, everything got created. All of creation happened. The Tanmatras came from there and so on and so forth. Till the Panchamahabhutas and then Annat Purushaha. If you remember that Taittiriya Upanishad, Akashat Vayu Vayuragni. So Annat Purushaha. So from till the human being, till the man, till the person, till the human being is created, everything is from the Gunatraya, Trigunas. And everything has the Trigunas in them in different degrees. So Krishna is telling that in different degrees it is available in every creation. But in human beings, we look at it differently. Like for example, even if in animals also it's there. We see animals that are very sattvic in nature. There are animals that's rajasic. There are animals that are tamasic. We see that in animals also, right? But they don't have a choice. They don't have an ability to transcend. They don't have an ability to understand. That Yermamada doesn't feel anything about it. You go and tell you're like a Yermamada. It's like, okay, yeah, I am an Yermamada. So there is nothing to feel wrong about it. Because animals don't have the sense of they live by the instinct and they live by whatever they're created for. That's all. They don't feel bad that why am I a buffalo? Why am I a hippopotamus? Why am I an elephant? Animals don't think like that, right? A cow doesn't think that I am holy. Everybody has to come and fall at my feet. The cow doesn't think like that. Nor does a monkey think that I'm considered to be the most unreliable creature. Or a scorpion doesn't think that people run away from me, or a snake doesn't think that. They live their nature. Now, the important thing to note is that they also are governed by the trigunas. It's just that they can't they can't tell what is their guna, what is the dominant guna. But human beings are being taught to look at ourselves and understand what the three gunas are. You say if you are lazy, indolent, procrastinating, not wanting to move, not wanting to do anything, that is tamasic nature, dull. If you're feeling excited, passionate, want to do something, constantly want to do something or the other, some action or the other, that is rajasic. And sattva is when you're wanting to be calm, pleasant, fulfilled, pleased with yourself and feel light. This is Sattvic. Tamasic, you will know when you've overslept. When you've overslept, sometimes you oversleep, right? You sleep for much longer than you usually do. When you get up, you will feel that tamas. A lot of times you'll feel this in the afternoons also. If you sleep around early evening, after you had a full meal and you early evening you sleep off and you get, there is a bit of a that tamas that is there in the body and the mind. So these are tendencies we can study in ourselves. And what he's saying, Krishna is saying, is that you move through that. From tamas, you try to get to rajas. When you're feeling tamasic, why do you say, okay, go for a run, go for a walk, do something? Because you want to shake the tamas. Tamas is important to go into sleep. Otherwise, you will not let the body rest. It will always be rajasic. Tamas is required. It's not that tamas is bad. All of these three are required in measured quantity. All of these are required. When you look at somebody sleeping, it doesn't mean that Sariyana Somberi. It's not like that. Somberi is not defined. Somebody goes to sleep doesn't mean he's Somberi or lazy. Right? But somebody, dullness, when in sleep also there is a certain dullness. You're sleeping. That's okay. But when you're awake and dull, that is the problem with tamas. So tamas qualities are useful for certain purposes. If you want to rest your body, rest your mind, bring it into a slow activity, tamas is required. Then rajas likewise is required to shake off tamas. When you can't stay in that tamas, you're saying, okay, it is good, but doesn't mean that it's good all the time. The problem with tamas is if it remains longer than it needs to, you overdo, that's a problem. You need rajas to counter tamas. At the same time, rajas is also not good. Rajas is good some extent, but you overdo rajas, that becomes a problem. It is like Parkinson's disease of the mind, always shaking, always constantly shaking, don't know what to do, can't be still. And then sattva is very good, it's a beautiful state. But he also points out that sattva also has its downfalls. Bhagavan Krishna is saying sattva is also not the final state. If we think sattvic is the best, it is good. But sattva is also a state which can introduce certain levels of individual identity. It's easy to break sattva. If you're in a sattvic state, I'm feeling light, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling on the top of the world, I'm feeling generous, I'm feeling kind. All of these things can break because you're also carrying an ego along with it and pride along with it. When you carry that, that can break. Sattva becomes very fragile. Sattva is important to go to a state of feeling light, feeling fulfilled, feeling satisfied. But if we bring the pride and ego along, then sattva can be the cause of downfall also. If you feel very knowledgeable, sattva is knowledge. If you feel very knowledgeable of everything, it is great, but then you can also stagnate. Humility will be lost. So sattva is also a trap. That is why in all these shlokas you will see he is bringing sattva, rajas, tamas almost in the same plane of existence. Of course, sattva is better than tamas and rajas, but sattva is not the end goal. So he starts off saying sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajah karmani bharata jnanam avritya tu tamah pramade satya sanjayatyuta. So sattva binds you to material joy. Sukhe, sukha is not ananda. understand. He is very carefully using the term sukha, not ananda. Sukha is something that is again tied down to
சௌக்கியம் சௌக்கியமா இருக்கிறது.
so that is also a trap, because it becomes very fragile. Pleasure, happiness, joy that you're experiencing, which comes from a cause. You're joyful, you're feeling sattva because your environment is good, because the AC is running, because your temperature is good, because your seating is good, because your stomach is full, because there are no mosquitoes. You'll feel sattva. You're listening to beautiful music, relaxed. The sattva feeling can be there for a period of time, but it's also fragile because it is due to many factors. That is why he's saying sukhe sanjayati. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati. It binds you to sukha, sattvam. Rajah karmani bharata. Rajas or the rajas tendency ties you to karma, actions. Jnanam avritya tu tamaha. Tamas is what? Jnanam avritya. It causes jnanam to be veiled. Ignorance. Avarna means veil. Jnanam avritya means after having veiled knowledge or jnanam, what remains is tamas. So tamas is tied to ignorance. Pramade sanjayatyuta. And it binds you to delusion. Pramade. And then he goes on in the 10th verse. He says, Rajas tamaschabhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata rajas sattvam tamaschaiva tamas sattvam rajas tatha. So he says sometimes sattva prevails over rajas. Rajas tamaschabhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata. Sometimes sattva prevails over rajas and tamas. Sometimes rajas dominates over sattva and tamas. Sometimes tamas dominates sattva and rajas. Whatever is a dominant guna at that time, you usually act based on that. We don't say that this person is sattvic doesn't mean that the other two tendencies are not there. Sattva is dominant. And somebody is rajasic doesn't mean that sattva is gone already completely. No, sattva is there, rajas is dominant. Likewise for tamasic person. But within the same person, these three can be at different times dominant. But usually when we engage with the person, we get that sense of their rajasic, tamasic or sattvic based on what is dominant most of the time. Right? Somebody is a sattvic person, most of the time he is dominant with that tendency. So this is what Bhagavan says. Rajas tamas chabhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata rajas sattvam tamas chaiva tamas sattvam rajas tatha. Sometimes rajas sattva reigns over or is dominant. Sometimes rajas is dominant. Sometimes tamas is dominant. And then he says, Sarvadvareshu. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate. Saying all Sarvadvareshu means from all the gates of the body. There are 9 gates, 9 dwara. Right? There are 9 dwaras in the body. The 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the 2 ears. So that's 6. The anus, the reproductive 8. And the mouth 9. Right? 9 gates. Is from all these 9 gates, prakasha upajayate. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin, in the deha, prakasha upajayate means knowledge is shining through. Jnanam yada tada vidya vidyavat vivruddham sattvam iti iti uta. So which means understand that it is sattva when all from all dehesmin, which means when the individual is doing something that appears to be knowledgeable, appears to be with wisdom, understand that sattva is dominant. Lobha pravrittir arambha karmanam ashamaspruha spruha rajasyetani jayante vivruddhe bharatarshabha. He is now, Krishna is trying to explain through these three verses 11, 12, 13 how to perceive somebody and understand whether they're sattva, rajas or tamasic. Okay, so first he's saying when through the body, through all, which means through all his actions and through all this person's, when you perceive, when you see this person, there is knowledge, prakasha upajayate. Prakasha means some kind of knowledge and wisdom and some kind of that light is seen. Vivruddham sattvam iti uta. Understand that there is sattva that is dominant in this person. When passion dominates, lobha pravrittir arambaha, there is lobha, there is need for worldly gain, there is restlessness, karmanam ashamaspurha, restlessness and craving. When this is developing, understand rajasi etani jayante vivruddhe bharatashabha. Understand these are the symptoms or these are the indications of rajas. What is that? Greed, lobha, there is a need for validation, there is a need for gain in the world, there is restlessness, there is craving. This is rajas. If you see this in somebody, know that this is rajas. And then he's saying aprakashaha pravrittischa pramado moha evacha. So somebody who is, there is inertia, there is negligence or carelessness, they are not, there is no, you don't, when you see them, you don't see life in them, right? When you see somebody like this, tamasi etani jayante vivruddhe kurunantana. So understand these are the dominant signs of ignorance. And ignorance means these are the signs of tamas. So this person, when you see this person, you know that there is no desire to live, or very careless. It's okay, whatever happens. So what? At the end of the day, they will say this philosophy is like ellam mannada. They'll say things like, everything is at the end dust only, dust turns to dust. What is the point in doing anything? So they will use, a lot of times they'll use very Vedantic philosophies, very profound Vedantic philosophies to justify their tamas. We can, and it's very difficult to argue with them also. This is the difference. They say somebody like who's a tamas and somebody who's a tattva-jnani, how do you differentiate? If this tamasic guy is talking Vedanta, how do you know he's not a tattva-jnani? There's a term I remember my guru's guru uses, Shivananda Swami. He calls this as some Vedanta, or lazy man's Vedanta, or something like that. Their Vedanta will be absolutely, they'll say anyways everything is Brahman. What is there to do? Inaction. There is nothing to do. Who am I to do? There is no I. Something they will say. But the next meal is not available. They will சாப்பாடு எங்க? So these are why is he giving indications? To study ourselves, to look at ourselves, to know that what it means by having these tendencies. What are these tendencies and how does it develop, and how do you look at yourself? Recognize yourself, right? And we are not trying to run behind one kind of a tendency and run away from another tendency, but we are becoming aware of it, knowing that some of these tendencies, there are tendencies that are very, very subtle and very dominant yet subtle, which is inside me because of my prarabdha, because of my karma phala, prarabdha that I'm carrying. There may be dominant tendencies, but they may be very subtle. I may not be able to perceive them. In fact, if you read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, very beautifully, he describes the states of mind. And it's fascinating because the subtlest vritti he is able to describe and define. So when you look at this, you will see that what is it that is dominant at any given point in time, and how do you balance it out? How do you balance these tendencies and use them for the appropriate purpose, right? When suppose somebody is hurt, or someone, um, there's a physical emergency that has happened, for example, right? You have to be rajasic. You have to do what is required, carry them, go to the hospital, take to the doctor, and all that. At that time, you can't stand and say, "Ellam அப்படி சொல்லி," you can't suddenly become a Swami and a Jnani there. You should use the tamasic energy that is within you. If you naturally become silent, is a different thing. At all cases, all conditions, we should be like that. That is fine. But if you're not able to be like that, we make it very selective. That is a problem. This is something we need to study ourselves. See, all Bhagavan is telling is he's pointing out these things so that we look and contemplate and think honestly, look at ourselves and think, where am I? What am I doing? How am I dealing with this? Rajas also, Sattva also, very beautifully, he's saying that it's important to look at Sattva. Is your mind going into a state where that I understand everything? Okay, wonderful. See, understanding everything is a good feeling. But it is important to know that you know. Right? A lot of times we continue to doubt our knowledge also. See, this is another problem we have. Even though we know something, we'll keep doubting. "Eh, எனக்கு நிஜமாவே தெரியுமா? Is it really? Oh, am I know?" Like that, we'll keep going into that loop. If you know, right? Be confident. Having confidence is different from arrogance. That is the difference we are talking about. You must have confidence in your knowledge, in your understanding. When you say you know, yes, I know. But then there is a humility that comes along with it. Because otherwise, then that sattva is a trap. Knowledge should bring clarity, should bring wisdom, should bring not just for yourself, even people around you should be able to see, this person has a certain amount of clarity. Doesn't get disturbed very soon, very fast. Right? How much ever turbulences, this person is not getting disturbed very much. Then he is residing in dominant sattva. And for that person also, there must be a recognition that, am I trying to force myself into sattva? See, sattva is always a fight against rajas and tamas. To be in sattva is always a fight against rajas and tamas. You will be, and see, forgive me for saying this, but you go to some spiritual organizations, you'll suddenly see people become very gentle. "வாங்கோ அண்ணா அண்ணா," அப்படிலாம் அப்படியே இப்படியே ஆயிடுவா. They'll become like that. Now, some people you will know that they're doing it genuinely because they've become like that, right? They become genuinely humble. But some people you will know that they're just, because in that environment they've got to be like that, they're doing that. And you will be able to see that difference. So are you putting on the makeup of sattva? That is something that we need to look at. Sattva can also be put up as a makeup, because inside you will be all kinds of things. Right? I'm not being recognized. I've been working in this organization doing seva for so many years. What is the point of doing seva if I don't get the recognition? Point is lost. So this sattva is a trap. If we don't deal with it appropriately, we need to get to sattva, but it should not be a makeup. Botox mari panni. Sattva should not be like Botox makeup on your face. You don't know who the original person is. So he says there are these three, all the three gunas, there are signals, there are symptoms to observe. Then he says, Yada sattve pravruddhe tu pralayam yati deha bhrit tado tam avidam lokan amalan pratipadyate. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tatha pralinas tamasi mudhayonishu jayate. What happens when somebody dies with the dominant tendency? So he says, one who dies with the dominant tendency of sattva reaches deha bhrit, he reaches to uttama vidam, uttama vidam lokan. He reaches to much purer abodes. Tad uttama vidam lokan amalan, pure, pratipadyate. He attains to that. For whom sattva is the dominant tendency when they die. Yada sattve pravruddhetu pralayam yati. When pralaya means death, when death, deha bhrit, death happens to the body, tada uttama vidam lokan amalan pratipadyate. He attains to that abode of pure and learned, where learned and pure people reside or entities reside. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate. Those who die with rajas or passion or action as their dominant tendency, they are born amongst people who are driven by works. Karma sangishu jayate. See, some people you will notice, they always want to be part of some association, some organization, some social. I want to be part of this group, that group. I want to pick up this flag in the flag of Tukin Pono. I want to do this, that. He says those are people who have died with a very strong rajasic dominant tendency. Right? They always want to be in, in some group, some community, something they want to keep doing. Third one, tatha pralinas tamasi mudhayonishu jayate. Those who die with ignorance, mudha yoni shu means, mudha means here in this case, animal. Mudha yoni. Mudha in this case is animal because compared to human beings, animals are mudha. They don't have the the level of intelligence of human beings. So compared to them, animals are mudha. Mudha yonishu. In the yoni of mudha jantu, such people are born. Those who have tamas as their dominant tendency. Why does it happen this way? It happens this way because each individual is driving towards, in life, remember, we are constantly driving towards what we want to be, whether in this lifetime or the next lifetime. Okay. And it's very important to know that death is not a resolution for anything. Death is not a resolution for anything except for bodily inconveniences. Bodily inconveniences, death is a resolution. For your emotional inconvenience, for your mental inconveniences, body is not a resolution. The death of the body is not a resolution. Your tendency inconveniences, the tendencies that we carry, death, physical death is not a resolution. Only bodily inconveniences, physical death is a resolution. This we need to remember very much. Because if we tie the body and the mind very hard, then the inconveniences of the body continues in the mind. And it becomes the inconvenience of the mind. It becomes the tendencies of the mind. And then when the body drops, it continues. See, we have seen people, even those who are physically challenged people, joyful, right? Physically challenged people, difficult to walk to a place which is business as usual for us. We can just go from one place to the other. People can't lift, there are people who can't lift a spoon to eat. So many, but you see them joyful. You still see them joyful. Now, physical inconveniences should not translate into emotional, mental inconveniences. Then they become tendencies there. And this is what he is saying. If you die with a tamasic influence, which is inertia, amampo, 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 you know, there's nothing in this life. What is there? What is there? What is there? What is there? Tamasic influence, your mind becomes that, your tendencies become that, then you will be born in the mudha yonishu jayate, born into a place where such tendencies are supported. Yeah, I'll say this in Tamil. There's a interesting joke. Belaji, I'll probably try to translate. If somebody tells a small person who's a small boy or a young man is born, is saying that looking at the horoscope, he says, uh, you know, money will flow in your hands. I'll use it, say it in English only. But Tamil epome, there is this, the way of saying is, it's nice. கையில காசு புரளும் அப்படின்னு. Money will flow in your hands. And then it becomes a cashier at the ATM counter. Cash is going through his hands, but it's not his. So in that way, what tendencies we carry strongly, those tendencies get manifest in your current life. Why next life? In your current life, it gets manifest, but next life, it's difficult for us to know that correlation. Bhagavan Krishna is saying it is correlated, right? So if we carry that indolence, that lethargy, dullness, then you look at animals around. You look at a hippopotamus. You look at a buffalo. It can sit in that, uh, this sand or mud. It can sit there for hours together. So Bhagavan is saying that this is the way nature will put you. Nature is so compassionate that say, this is what you want. This is what I'll give you. Rajasic, I want to be continuously, I want to be in action. I want to do this, that, and the other. I can't keep quiet and I can't shut up for a while. I think something's wrong with me if I'm lying down on the bed also. பெட்ல படுத்துனா கூட கால கை எப்படி இப்படி ஏதாவது ஆட்டிகிட்டே இருக்கணும். If you feel like that, next Janma he is saying, you will be born as a worker. Worker means who is continuously has to be engaged in work, some kind or the other kind of work. See, look at this hummingbird, or look at a monkey, for that matter, right? How is this monkey? Keeps jumping from one place, it can't sit quietly. I mean, we know there are human beings like that who just can't be, just be. The feeling, it is good to be active and engaged, but the feeling that if you stop, the world is going to stop, then this is the kind of yoni that we will get. And he further says, Sattva yada sattve prabuddhetu pralayam yati deha prita. So such people with sattvic guna, they go to these higher abodes which are gentler, sattva, pure. Amalan, which is, there is no mala. Such abodes you will go to. but again he will come back. And this he will continue to say. He will explain that in the following few shlokas. But he says, if you've got to be in one of these wombs, it is better to be in the sattva. So why do we try to be sattvas? Because when we die, we don't fall into rajas and tamas wombs. This is the idea. We don't fall into wombs that make it difficult for me to transcend that. It should not become a compulsion. Rajas, understand, is a compulsion. Tamas is a compulsion. Yes, Mama.
Maybe Rajas also binds you, yeah. Rajas also binds us, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Like action, you always tend to be in action, and to transcend to sattva is very difficult for many people. I've seen that. Like I've seen workaholics who've been working all their lives, and suddenly when they retire, they have nothing to do, and they find it very strange, and they're unable to cope up because they're bound to be rajasic. Yeah,
Bound to action. Correct. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. They are bound. So any compulsion for that matter is inappropriate. Any kind of compulsion.
Compulsion or other, and the attachment to the work itself. If they are attached to that work and they again enjoy that work, or rather they expect some enjoyment out of that work, then that probably binds. அதெல்லாம் இல்லை, ஏதோ என்ன வேலை பண்ணியானும்பா அப்படின்ட்டு வேலை பண்றவ பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தாக்கா அவளுக்கு ஒன்றும் they won't get bound, இல்லையா?
Correct. The important thing is enjoying work is an important thing. We cannot deny the fact that whatever work we do, we enjoy it. But does it become a compulsion is for an individual to look at it and say, which means when work is not there, what happens to me is the evaluation that one needs to do. For whatever reason, suppose now your battery has died in the phone. Can you be silent? Can you be? Or you become restless till the phone battery comes back? Right? Do we become restless till the phone battery comes back and I'm active? Apadi, ipo WhatsApp, Instagram. Oh, 10 minutes the phone battery went off. I didn't know what to do. And those 10 minutes we are thinking about what to do next with the phone. See, these are all some form of mental diseases. Compulsion. Anything, we should look at ourselves. Anything, if it becomes a compulsion, it is not good. And Rajas is essentially compulsion. Tamas is procrastination, indolence. You don't want to, it is, there is lethargy in Tamas. In Rajas, there is compulsion. Compulsion to action. Compulsion to keep doing something. It is not wrong. What is wrong is the compulsion. If it is done out of compulsion, if that action doesn't happen, it puts me to a restlessness. That is the tendency that we need to avoid. Okay? And this is for each individual to observe. So he says, observe this closely. Am I able to? And when we observe this, we take a break. Oh, am I becoming compulsive? Let me take a break. Let me just release that energy. Because a lot of times, without thinking, we get into action just because we're used to doing action. Next, this, next. Used to doing action. So, Rajas in that sense is you kind of look at compulsion and you try to avoid that. Sattva, again, it brings to you a better place, of course, better than Rajas and Tamas. And that tendency will take you to much better planes of existence. But again, that's not the end state also, anyways. That is the reason, along with aging, old age, it is advised to be composed and become religious or so. Correct. You use religion, you use spirituality, you do bhajans, you do upanyasam, listening to upanyasam, you do all of this while you age, because when you age, if there are tendencies to act and you're not able to because of your bodily condition, it creates a whole lot of um, suppressed tendencies. You're wanting to, but you can't because of the physical disabilities. It creates suppressed tendencies. So even if the person is not doing any rajasic work, but the tendencies are there, it will still manifest. That is important to know. Tendencies are the most important thing, not about what you're actually doing. It is a tendency. If tendencies are there and you're suppressed, kai kati pottu, if you bind my hands and you say, okay, you have not done any work, so you're not rajasic. No, my whole movement is there inside. I'm waiting for when my hands are going to be unbound and I'm going to go jump on work. That compulsion, that is something that we need to look at. And like Amma is saying, which is why we do all of these things as we grow older, because when the inability sets in, the tendencies also should calm down. They should also become more and more sattvic. Okay. So we'll pause here today. Om Kayena Vacha Manasendriyerva Buddhyatmana va Prakrite Swabhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai नारायणायति समर्पयामि सदाशिवायति समर्पयामि जगदम्बिकेति समर्पयामि सद्गुरुनाथायति समर्पयामि हरि ओम सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम